want. They will buy them and ship them to you for free. Joel, there was something that came. Do you have what? What? Go ahead.
What do you mean, what?
You took a deep breath and what?
I was waiting to spit.
Did you have something, or do you want me to go into what I have?
I want to know where you're going. I thought we were going to the same place. Maybe we're not.
Well, I'll tell you where I was going with this. So Lennox Lewis came out, weighed in on the McGregor and Floyd thing, and Lennox is, and I keep telling you this, but the overwhelmingly surprising storyline here that keeps coming out of this is the public's absolute disregard for the sweet science of boxing. The public is taking a guy who has never done professional boxing and saying he can beat or at least compete with a guy who has never lost at professional boxing. And for me, that is such an insane statement, because if you compare that to anything else in life, you would get laughed at. But the public seems to believe it. And then what's more interesting to me is when and the public, they've always got a false perception, and they can have that. They've got the right to that. When you buy the ticket and you're the fan, you get the right to whatever opinion you want, no matter how left field you are. You have that right. Where you don't have that right is when you're a member of the industry. A member of the industry and of a sport, fellow boxers should feel very disrespected by this. Because not only do they lose hope and their fellow boxers that are doing everything they can to get opposite of Floyd Mayweather and get on a major marquee fight and start to build their own brand, don't get an opportunity. They're giving it to some guy that's never done the sport before. But when they're coming out and they're not sure who's going to win, it's like, man, you got to be kidding me. Have I falsely respected boxing all these years? Is boxing not a real sport? Because it either is or it isn't. If boxing's a real sport, Conor gets destroyed.
What did Lennox Lewis say?
Lennox Lewis comes out and he says, it's a great spectacle, but I don't think it'll be a great fight. Conor is great at all styles, but Floyd's a master of one. If Floyd was going to fight MMA, I don't think he'd win. Meaning if Conor's going to fight boxing, I don't think he'd win. Lennox Lewis was the champion of the world. I think his career ended at like 33 wins and 1 loss. Absolutely remarkable fighter from the industry that should be coming out and going, this is absolutely insane. If you want to watch the spectacle, I'll be right there along with you, but this is going to end fast and violently. We have an undefeated multiple champion from this sport taking on a guy who's never done the sport. That's what I would think a guy would say. Again, if this was the wrestling world and you wanted to bring in a guy that's a good, solid athlete, but he's never had a wrestling match, and he's got to take on the best guy that we have right now, David Taylor. Okay? Nobody in wrestling would eat. I mean, this is going to be over in 30 seconds, and should be. It absolutely should be. But for some reason, in the sport of boxing, nobody is dismissing Conor's chances. It's very respectful to Conor. But they are so greatly disrespecting their own sport. That's either a sport or it's not. And apparently it's not. Apparently it's just you get in really good shape and go throw as many punches as you can and hope more land than the other guy. Apparently that's what it is, which I didn't know. It's like finding out there's no Santa Claus. I thought it was a great, masterful sport, actual sport with techniques and footwork and timing and things that matter and experience and range and all these things that I've always been told. I've thought that. I'm starting to change my opinion. If anybody as an insider, and nobody's more inside in boxing than the former heavyweight champion of the world, Lennox Lewis, doesn't completely dismiss a guy who's never done it, who's about to take on the greatest, most decorated athlete your entire sport has ever produced in the history of ever, and you're giving the kid a chance, your sport sucks.
I think you've nailed that point over and over and over the last several weeks, and I haven't really been listening to you because I think you're wrong. I think you're absolutely wrong. We had Mike Perry on the show, and you asked him that question, and he said, sometimes I go with the high-level boxers, and sometimes I do real good, but sometimes their footwork it just gets me going backwards. I don't know what I'm doing. And as soon as he said that, I was like, yeah, of course, because they were carrying you the other times. I disagree with you 100%. I agree with you in terms of why isn't everybody coming out and saying this is insanity, which it should be. Mayweather's not going to knock him out in the first or second round. Mayweather's going to gas him out, not take a punch, in the first 3 rounds, and then he's going to pick him apart and
terrible.
Embarrass him, and it's going to be ugly. Or Conor's going to get disqualified. I've said this a few times.
What part did you disagree? I was confused on what part you disagreed with me on. You disagreed with me, but where are you disagreeing with me?
I disagree with the fact that boxing isn't a sport. Boxing is a sport.
Okay, well, let me weigh in on that, though, because I'm on the side that boxing is a sport. I'm on the side
But you just said you're starting to believe it's not.
Well, it's one way or the other, and they're making me believe this. They're making me believe there's no Santa Claus. I am stunned with the fact that an insider will not defend tooth and nail his own sport to a guy coming over to it that's never done it before. I am stunned by that. So what I'm saying is it's one way or the other, and we're going to find out on the fight night. Your analysis just said you think it sucks. If you think that Floyd is going to go a few rounds with Conor before he picks him apart, that means boxing sucks. Because you've got the greatest to have ever done it against a guy who has never done it. So what are you saying, Joel? I mean, pick a side here. If you're saying you think it goes a few rounds by strategy of Floyd Mayweather, that's a cop-out. You're giving a cop-out to Floyd that he goes a few rounds. Go back to my David Taylor example. If this were a wrestling match, the best that we have right now in David Taylor, that's just in the country, not even the world, and that we've ever seen. The best that we have in the country right now, so I'll put David Taylor forward, against a guy that's never done it, and you're going to give an analysis as a wrestler, you're going to come on and go, yeah, well, I think what David Taylor's going to do is he's going to wear him down before he picks him apart in Texas. David Taylor doesn't do a goddamn thing. It doesn't matter who's in better shape, who's in anything. David Taylor's going to take that guy down. He's going to turn him every way, which way but loose. It's going to be 13 seconds long, and everybody's going to get up and go home. 100% of the time, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, that match is less than 15 seconds. And when I normally tell this story, I go, well, it'd be less than 30 seconds. But that's to buy myself some time. That match is 30 seconds long. If I told you in any other sport, I'm going to bring in a really good athlete, but he's never played basketball, but he's a good athlete, and he's going to play LeBron James. And if somebody had to give me a breakdown and go, well, I think here's what LeBron's going to do. I think he's going to kind of wear the guy down. I think he's going to size him up. He's going to kind of see what he can do from the three-point line, let him get inside a little bit, and then LeBron's going to put a game plan together. And come that second and third quarter, oh, man, LeBron's going to blow this thing open. Then you just disrespected LeBron, and you just disrespected the entire sport of basketball, which does not date as far back, even close by hundreds of years, to as far back as the sport of boxing.
All right, so what you're saying is if Mayweather doesn't take a punch, doesn't get hit one single time, and pieces him up for 3 or 4 rounds and then takes him out, then boxing's embarrassment. I don't agree with you.
How do you not? But compared to the David Taylor example I just gave you, or the LeBron example I just gave you, why would somebody that's a good athlete, let's acknowledge they're a really good athlete, but they've never played basketball, be able to make it into the third quarter with LeBron James or whatever the rules are for one-on-one in basketball? Why would that ever happen? What other sport can you compare it to? I'm going to take a really great athlete and I'm going to put him against Serena Williams. Well, they're kind of big, and Serena's got to wear him down. She's got to size him up a little bit, but boy, she's definitely gonna win the game. Well, you just disrespected tennis and Serena. It's either real or it's not. And she goes out there and she knocks the balls against this person that's literally never done it before. And you could talk about they're a great athlete, and they trained really hard for 8 months. She's been doing it her whole life at a high level. She's been at the top of the game for 14 years versus somebody who's done it for 9 months in the gym. It's like, look, you're either disrespecting her or you're not, and you're disrespecting the entire industry. So if somebody wants to come forward, and if this happens the way you're saying it, and a lot of people, and you're a smart guy, you know the sport, you know what you're talking about, and that's how you see it ahead of time. If that plays out and you act like that's anything but an absolute overwhelming win by Conor, if Conor can go out there and get into the 5th and 6th round, Shambe Mitchell's a former world champion in boxing, and he got stopped in the 5th round by Floyd Mayweather. So if you're telling me that Conor McGregor, who's never even done the sport before, is likely to make it into the 5th round, then you don't respect boxing. Period.
That's your opinion. I disagree with you. I think that
Michael Spinks won a gold medal in a world championship, and he made it 91 seconds against Mike Tyson. So what in the hell is this whole we got to feel this thing out process with everybody?
Roy Jones Jr. said, yeah, I'm not in a big hurry to fight you because MMA fighters throw punches at a different angle. It's going to take Floyd a minute to figure this thing out. That's all I'm saying. And at the end of the day, who's got the bigger risk here?
Then how is that not a win for Conor? Or will you concede to that point? If it does take Floyd a while to figure it out, each minute that Conor's out there is a win for Conor. Do you give me that point? Or am I alone on that one too?
I mean, okay. I'll give you that.
And would you give me that no other sport would work that way? Now, I don't care how scared he is of the punches. LeBron doesn't need to be worried about somebody having some weird layup because they've never done it before and he hasn't seen it before. And Serena doesn't have to worry about somebody's, crazy overhand because they've never done it before and it's a little unorthodox.
Yeah, Ben Askren doesn't have to worry about GSP's double leg.
Okay,
in a wrestling match.
Other sport, it doesn't matter. You bring in the king, he squashes somebody.
Like Randy squashed Tony.
I mean, yes or no? It has to work that way. In any minute that it doesn't, I mean, my goodness, Michael Spinks, an Olympic champion, a world champion, made it 91 seconds. Mike Tyson didn't need to wear him down and move around. Oh, feel out these punches. The guy's got this huge reach. Oh, this was a little bit weird. Man, you've either got a skill or you don't.
God,
you can either step in
and
measure a guy and put him down, or you can't. And if you're the greatest of all time, taking a guy that's never done it and he makes it into the 5th round, your sport sucks.
You know what?
And I don't want to believe boxing sucks. I think that
I want you to be right.
Joel, I think in some ways when I say this, your response then presents it as though I'm bagging on boxing. I am an amateur boxer. I love and respect the sport of boxing. It's making me question because I also respect Lennox Lewis's opinion. I respect Freddie Roach's opinion. I respect Oscar De La Hoya's opinion. And when those three guys that I hold in a high regard in that field come out and they don't overwhelmingly just dismiss this and go, man, this is a joke, but let's enjoy the show. Let's have some fun with this thing and throw our money down. But my God, this is over before it begins. The walkout's going to be longer than the match. When they don't come out and say things like that, it does make me start to question, wait a minute, have I been lied to all these years? Is boxing not a real sport? And then I talk to you. I respect your opinion, and you're telling me right now on the air that this is likely to go into the 5th round. Sean Bay Mitchell only made it to the 5th round. Sean Bay Mitchell is a world boxing champion.
I don't want to, what's it called, ducktail on this. I hope you're right. I think there's a way we can both be right. I believe if Mayweather wanted to take him out in the very first round, he could. Yes. I do not think he's going to do that for several reasons. One is then he's got to go out and be aggressive, and he opens it up to catching a lucky punch. That's not how Mayweather fights. So if you think Mayweather's going to change the way he fights just because he's fighting somebody else, I think you're wrong. On this one, I hope you're right. I hope you're right, and it doesn't diminish the fact that I'm going to be rooting for Conor. I hope you're right because you make a great point.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I did just want to set the record straight there because I thought that after I got done with that rant, by your response, you thought that somehow I was kicking boxing. I'm actually on the other side of it where I think this fight is 30 seconds, but I'm also on the side of it where I'm saying it had better be. This had better be 30 seconds. If you're the greatest of all time and you've never lost a professional boxing and you're taking on a guy who has never done professional boxing, that had damn sure better be over instantly. It really does need to be.
Paying attention's hard.
Yeah, and even when I talk about the Sean Bay Mitchell, it's a perfect example where Floyd went out there, he took him apart, and he put him away, and the guy's a former world champion. And, I'm hearing people now try to make excuses for Floyd, and you just did it too, where he's going to go out and take that lucky punch. There are no lucky punches in boxing. Okay, that does happen in MMA with a 4-ounce glove. There is no such thing as a lucky punch in boxing where they've got 16-ounce gloves and the defense is totally different. You're facing a guy head on. Are you ready? Are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready. And you come out there and do it. There's no sucker punches and there's no lucky punches. There's just good, solid boxing. So that doesn't happen in that sport. You hear this whole, well, he's got a puncher's chance. That is garbage in boxing. That does happen in MMA. You'll see guys where you go, hey, that guy's nowhere near the stand-up fighter, and he knocked the other guy out. Yeah, that is true with the 4-ounce glove. That is absolutely a fallacy when it comes to boxing.
Now, can you do me a favor? Since we're